Afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. We would especially like to thank the deans at CADREI as well as the Texas Deans of Education, and each of you for taking the time to join this conversation today. I'm Sabrina Baptiste. I'm the project director of the Pathways Alliance, and today I'll give you a brief overview of who we are, why this work matters right now, and what participation in the Alliance looks like for colleges and schools of education. And then I'm joined by some amazing folks. You'll then hear from Corey Kennedy from WGU on Dean's perspectives and her leadership and thoughtful work behind being a Dean at WGU. You'll also hear from Aaron Moat, who is our Executive Director here at Innovate EDU, on how Pathways fits into a broader national effort and where the field is heading. I'll go into a little bit about who we are and how we came to be. And again, thank you for being a part of this conversation. Who we are. The Pathways Alliance is led by Innovate EDU, which is a national coalition focusing on strengthening the educator prep pipelines, especially through residencies and registered apprenticeships. We are often describe ourselves as an uncommon coalition because we bring together organizations that don't usually sit at the same table. That's higher ed, districts, workforce leaders, policy organizations, and of course, national nonprofits. We all come together to work toward the same goal, stronger, more sustainable pathways into the profession. Why we began. Um, we started this work because the educator, of course, workforce seemed to be at a crossroads. Teacher shortages were being affected. Again, they were not stable. And we know that this came at a really high time where we were seeing a lot of the effects from COVID as well. COVID did not create these issues, but it did magnify them, widening staff shortages and putting strain on an already fragile pipeline. So traditional prep systems alone cannot meet today's demands. That doesn't mean they aren't essential. It just means that we want to be able to ensure that we must complement them and strengthen them as well. And that is done by creating new job embedded pathways that maintain quality while improving access. The Alliance was launched in 2021 with founding partners like AACTE, Deans for Impact, the Learning Policy Institute, ASU's Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College, National Teacher Center for Residencies, Public Impact, and quite a few others, and also a full scale. The ideal was that it was very simple, but we wanted to ensure that it was powerful. We aligned expertise, resources, and again, some data that was nationally available to ensure that we were making informed decisions for educators to enter and stay into the profession. And more importantly, higher education is not on the sidelines of this work. Colleges and schools, of course, are central to education. Through this national coalition, we have currently over 80 participating partners. We grew this not overnight, but being thoughtful, being intentional, and ensuring that we had quality along the way. Some of our mission, next slide, please, and I'll continue to show some of our partners. Thank you. Our mission and goals for this work was to help create and transform the learning ecosystem where every learner has access to strong educational opportunities. What that meant for us, we were building trust across stakeholders. We were creating shared language and definitions. We were identifying ecosystem gaps. We were also connecting knowledge and services to new teachers so that way they can move through the pipeline and have an additional pathway that was affordable and high quality. And I wanted to reiterate, we understand that this is a trust business. So we wanted to emphasize that we were building trust and building a sense of purpose across the work that we were doing. The Pathways Alliance is structured with, as I mentioned, founding partners. Our founding partners attend a bi monthly all partner call that's 60 minutes about The founding members discuss and make informed decisions regarding current education policy, needs in the education prep space, and also ensuring that things such as working groups and resources are created in a meaningful and impactful way. Our all partner calls are bi-monthly as well. We meet for about 30 minutes where we are able to knowledge share and ensure that things like working groups, standing, that we are also sharing and having conversations about any gaps in the field. And that also we are creating space for resources that could be impactful and also giving folks the ability to join our working groups as well. I would like to also just really highlight some meaningful reasons as to where we started and it'll draw a very crystal clear picture as to where we are in this work today. A key moment for this work came from us when national leaders elevate their strong need for pathways into teaching. At the time, there were only 2 states that had registered teaching apprenticeships. Now we have seen a rapid expansion and growing federal, state, and interest. The Dear Colleagues letter from the US Departments of Education and Labor really signaled a new era of collaboration between education and workforce system. And for us, that gave us the ability to really highlight a moment that was very impactful and a need of, and a sense of urgency for us to kind of jump into this work. This moment we wanted to make sure that we were coordinated, that we were ensuing a national effort to rethink how teachers enter the profession. All of this set the stage for the Pathways Alliance and the apprenticeship work that have taken shape today. Currently, since this work, there are about 49 states that have registered teacher apprenticeship programs. We are hoping that we'll get to 50 before the end of the year. A couple conversations and maybe some pushes will get us there. We are also extremely elated to just mention that our work as an alliance has vastly taken on shape to accommodate so much more than just teaching residencies. Since we have pushed the national guideline standards for teaching, we have also had national guideline standards in the works for tutors and also principal apprenticeship programs. We have also currently expanded our work into data interoperability for preparation to the workforce, research evaluation and policy alignment, and also AI and education prep as well. Members contribute expertise, co-develop resources, and also shape guidance for the field. Working groups allow for targeted involvement based on various interests, such as resource development, pilot participation, visibility across national leaders. We want to just create a visual to show how our work stays connected and how we continue to bridge gaps. At an Innovate EDU, we really highlight core leadership, guiding strategic direction, and communication for alliance coordination. Within that, we continue to connect with our founding partners, which then translates our work to our alliance members to make sure that we are still staying aligned with field expertise, practice-based knowledge, co-development of standards and frameworks, and also guidance for tools, resources, and content. Our working groups, as I mentioned, a few of the ones that we have involved in currently are very topic specific. We find, of course, folks that are leading expertise in the field to lead our working groups. And then we also make sure that they're composed of members who drive recommendations and shared resources as well. And we're also ensuring that we are also keeping a very high standard for the field. Our Pathways partners engage through various aspects. As I mentioned, working groups are a very big one for us, but however, we are continuously developing resources that make sure that the folks in this field are continuously aligned and also providing recommendations where we see that we can close or address any gaps. We also have pilot recommendations as we are in the works of kicking off our Pathways TA cohorts for the principal apprenticeship programs. We want to ensure that we are continuously providing visibility as national leaders and also shaping the future of the workforce. And as I mentioned before, these are some of the working groups that we have highlighted. Currently, our principal apprenticeship working group, the NGS, again, is built on proven leadership and workforce quality frameworks, positioning principal apprenticeships programs as high quality and workforce aligned pathways. And as I just mentioned, we are also extremely excited to kick off our principal TA cohort, which will be at no cost to states and districts to be offered practical guidance focused on registration, funding, implementation on principal apprenticeships. Our data infrastructure, which is supported by EdFi Alliance, is aimed to develop a set of recommendations and resources to support the growth of educator apprenticeship programs by addressing core operational needs and collecting data for progress monitoring. Our AI in Education Working Group, again, is continuing to foster a cross-sector collaboration to explore the role of AI in educator prep. We're looking to ensure that we are building capacity for AI adoption, as well as advocate for new solutions that are supporting safe and responsible solutions for AI integration in education. This slide is especially meaningful to us, and we're hoping to this audience as well. Without higher education leadership, quality varies, systems are fragmented, and policy can outpace program design. Deans don't just respond to change, you all shape the field. Your role in curriculum, licensure pathways, quality, accreditation, and also the faculty expertise is what anchors this work. We're happy to ensure that without higher ed leadership, none of this work would be possible. So with this experience in coalition building and also being able to provide structure, we're happy to have you all on this call today. And I wanted to highlight too our compendium of apprenticeship programs, and I really wanted to highlight how this signifies quality in action. Created in 2023, the Compendium of Registered K through 12 Teaching Apprenticeship Program brings clarity and credibility to a rapid growing field. It really distinguishes which programs are aligning with the national guideline standards for K through 12 teaching, and also what does it look like for models for folks to use this work. Again, as I mentioned, these programs are grounded in the national standards. They help states and districts design programs that are effective and, of course, ready to scale. What is most important is that we're taking individual programs and sharing them into a national roadmap for strengthening the educator workforce. As I mentioned, this started off as two very small programs in Tennessee and in New York, now to growing to over 5,000 active apprentices today. I want to pass it off to Corey Kennedy, who is joining us from WGU, who will share her experience in leadership as a dean.
Sabrina and Aaron, thank you for the invitation. But before I introduce myself and kick off, I just want to pause and say thank you to everyone who is here. I've been with WGU for 13 years, all in the School of Education, and education has changed profoundly over that time. And so I just want to share what we do every single day is not easy. It's innovative and it's challenging and it's exciting, but it is also deeply, deeply important to the communities in which we live, breathe, work, our families are a part of. So thank you for being here to collaborate, to share your experiences. I think Sabrina and Aaron, in the work that they do as they lead out on this, as we start to talk a little bit about this, the language isn't necessarily consistent. Internships, residencies, registered apprenticeships. And so it's only together do we actually start to form a collective narrative of where we want, educator preparation and principal preparation to go. So I will introduce myself, Corey Kennedy. I've been with WGU School of Education, as I mentioned, for about 13 years, always in the School of Education. I am the Dean of Academic Operations and Innovation, and I have the opportunity to work with our academic programs Just very quickly, if you're not familiar with WGU, we were founded in 1997 by a group of bipartisan governors. We are competency-based, 100% online. We are both regionally and programmatically accredited. The School of Education currently serves about 14,000 active students, and we support students across educator preparation, principal preparation, both undergrad and graduate non-licensure programs that enable our candidates to continue to advance in the field of education. So. Sabrina and Aaron, if you want to go to the next slide, Sabrina and Aaron asked, me to share some of our perspectives. And I'll highlight some of these, but I really do hope we can get into a conversation around the question and answer. These are some of the things that we're observing. And Sabrina, I think I really loved how you shared the work that we're doing here is not necessarily independent of traditional educator or principal preparation, excuse me. It really is a complement to the work that continues to exist in traditional development. But what we're really seeing is that states and districts that we all interact with as deans and schools of education are really thinking about novel ways to address their community needs, retention of their community members that work in the school districts that are seeking to advance their career in education and engaging with us as deans in our schools of education. The cost of a degree, right? We have been talking a long time about the cost of student teaching and just the cost of a degree. How are we creating a diverse pipeline of educators, prospective educators, and principals? And what's the quality of that preparation look like? And so it's a collective like this with Pathways Alliance that we're actually sitting down and talking about what are these novel pathways, which things are working in different communities to meet the different community needs with this effort of how do we actually create a low to no cost experience for our candidates? And how do we, this is the fun part, how do we actually start to honor the previous work that some of our candidates have had? And I'm really thinking about paraprofessionals that have maybe have been in the field for, 5, 10 years. They're impactful members of their community. They're positively impacting students and the districts in which they work. How can we as deans and institutions of higher education start to honor some of that work and map it into our degree experiences? That's that connection between workforce experience and education so that we get to a place that someone isn't actually having to go get a degree to get a job, but it's actually the combination of the two that ensure we're having quality advancement of skills that are relevant to the community needs. Now, the other thing that's unique here that we're seeing is it's that second half of this, mentor teachers being ready. Sabrina, you started to share about this shift that happened during COVID. Not only are we seeing changes in the teacher representation, that is impacting the quality and availability of experienced mentor teachers. In some spaces, we're seeing second year teachers being asked to mentor candidates entering into their student teaching. That's not an ideal experience for a second year teacher. That's not a great experience for an entering educator. And so as we're thinking about our education experiences, complementing traditional education prep with apprenticeships, internships, residencies, how are we also preparing the mentor teacher or the journey person to be prepared to mentor adult learners? And so that there's this simultaneous growth of teacher preparation, principal preparation, and high quality mentor teachers. Because we all know that the mentor teacher has a profound impact on the retention of a candidate to stay in the field and what their first 5 years of teaching is really going to look like. And then lastly, and Sabrina, this goes back to what you shared, that complement. What we're starting to find is that districts are sharing that early and frequent clinical experiences are essential for readiness to enter into the classroom. So really is trying to move us away from a first year candidate, like that individuals are better prepared to enter into the classroom than they have been historically because of the frequent and early clinical experiences that they're engaging. But this actually goes back to mentor teachers, right? Without quality mentor teachers, our district partners, we're noticing this as a school of education, don't necessarily have the resources to support early and frequent clinical experiences or to support apprenticeships or residencies. So we're trying to challenge ourselves to think about how can we use technology to do that? I know as deans, we are always talking about, are we preparing our candidates to use technology? Are we incorporating it into our own product? But instead starting to think about how are we using technology, whether it's simulations, AI, different things to create dynamic learning experiences that advance our candidates past what would typically be kind of that first year, first day, partnering that with workforce learning experiences to really advance that idea that our candidates are entering in at what typically would have been second or third year experiences. And I would love to say we have solutions for this, and we don't. That's the power of this collective, is to say, what are you all learning? What are you experiencing? What's working in the communities that you exist, in the districts that you partner with, to say, this is working, this is not working, this is the data that we need to understand the effectiveness. But these are really the three big areas that we're noticing as we support this work across the nation.
So much, Corey. That perspective really highlights how this work shows up in real institutional decision making. And before we continue, I want to turn it to Aaron, our CEO and founder, who can really do some framing for us on how Pathways fits into the broader national networks and really to talk about what's around the corner in educator. Aaron.
Thanks so much, Sabrina. And Corey, thanks so much for that calling in you just did. This work is not easy and certainly is not gotten easier over the last year together. And so it's so good to see so many of you again. I was so pleased to join the CADREI team earlier this year to speak at your conference. And it was so clear that connective tissue between institutions and organizations, both to address the challenges that we're seeing right now in the workforce, but also to see around the corner, is really, really important. And I think strengthening those connections in our ecosystem between research, colleges of teacher preparation and education, and making sure that we're able to take advantage of opportunities that might be happening within a changing policy and operating context is really, really important. And so I want to talk a little bit about how I kind of see that coming together for the cadre deans, and really just again offering a calling in of all of you to join the Alliance. You know, we're really excited about the work we're doing right now to think about a comprehensive pipeline in the educator profession. And so Sabrina shared a little bit about the national guideline standards for K-12 teacher apprenticeships, which have really done, I think, some really important work in terms of bringing new resources to institutions of higher education, institutions, including school districts and states, and have really created a framework by which we continue to invest in research-backed, evidence-based quality programming. And oftentimes that's actually in partnership with institutions of higher education as that learning provider. And what's been great about that work is that framework for quality has meant that we've also been able to translate, as Sabrina shared with the compendium, what quality looks like. You know, in the apprenticeship space, and those dollars and funds happen in two ways. They happen at the federal level and they happen at the state and local level. But we can't expect state and local workforce boards who have been doing apprenticeships in fields like welding and other spaces to know what a quality like educator preparation program looks like. And that's why the compendium is so important, because through the partnership that Pathways has with the National Association of Workforce Boards and the Department of Labor, every quarter we update that compendium with new models, and that compendium then goes out to all state and local workforce boards and gets published and updated in sort of federal outreach mechanisms. And what's so great about that is we're not asking folks at state and local workforce boards to be able to figure out what quality prep looks like. We're providing them both guidelines and models for what this looks like in real life. And so many of those institutions that are in that compendium are institutions of higher education. And so even if you're not a Pathways member, we would invite you we want you to join the Alliance, but we'd invite you to submit your apprenticeship program as a model as well. Corey talked a little bit about language. So much of the work that Pathways is doing right now is translating and being a champion between the education sector and the labor and workforce sector. Journey worker is an apprenticeship term, but for us in the education space, it's a teacher candidate. And so we just have to sort of help folks see each other between the labor and the workforce space and the education space. And that's certainly something that Pathways were really hoping to do in partnership with institutions of higher education and with all of you. And then the next set of things that Pathways is embarking on, before I talk about some of the sort of seeing around the corner pieces, Sabrina, is the work, frankly, around research. So one of the things that Pathways is taking on over the next 2 years, Sabrina talked about the really exciting work we're doing with the Department of Labor to add a principal apprenticeship and a tutor apprenticeship guideline. But the really important work is making sure that apprenticeships are providing the type of economic, social mobility and learning outcomes for students that we want to see in quality programs. And so over the course of the next couple of years, you're going to see Pathways Alliance really lean into a set of research questions around differentiated models into the profession and what apprenticeship models are offering those quality evidence-based methods for preparing educators to enter into the profession. Because we know, I'm going to give a little bit of a shout out to Texas. One, because I know Frank will appreciate that, but also because in Texas, there's great work happening to show that when we invest in evidence and when we invest in quality preparation, we can actually move policy. So I'm super excited about some of the work that's happening that we're seeing at the state level that Pathways is leading. We'll be releasing a research brief highlighting some of the research being done at Texas Tech, which shows that simply having a teacher who has learning experiences, mentorship, and practical work experience that's common to educator preparation pathways that many of you have and are creating and leading and stewarding has a massive effect on student outcomes. A differentiation of 3 to 4 months on student outcomes in a single year when there's a qualified educator who's the teacher of record. And what that has meant is a change in policy at the state level. And, Texas making a big swing. We're going to see some other states do that as well towards prioritizing and privileging those quality educator pathways and making sure that no uncertified teachers are standing as the teacher of record over the next 5 years in Texas. So super exciting to see that link between evidence, policy, and practice come forward. And that's the type of work you're going to see Pathways really supporting and really continuing to amplify. And then let's talk about seeing around the corner. There's a lot changing at the federal level, both in terms of what resources are available, ultimately to who and how programs are managed and what that looks like. And we're going to have to muddle through that together over the next couple years. But one thing I will say is that at Pathways, and I'm going to have the team from Innovate EDU hopefully share this in the chat, we're partnering to make sure that as institutions of higher education are faced with new and different requirements, there's a great webinar we're hosting in just 3 days about the changing IPEDS requirements. And that's the type of thing that if you're a member of Pathways, you gain access to as part of the Innovate EDU community is these sort of just-in-time resources and community to meet the needs of institutions of higher education as they're sort of confronted with new and changing requirements, new and changing policy, and the need to understand what's coming and what's around the corner. So as we prepare for different types of opportunities, both in terms of federal funding, but also in terms of new opportunities in strengthening the pipeline, we hope that Pathways can continue to really hold the line on research-backed, evidence-based quality preparation. And we'd love to do that with you and with the rest of the CADREI deans. Thanks, Sabrina. I hope that's helpful in making the case for why we'd love to have you all join us.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Erin. And we want to also just let anyone know if you have any questions, please feel free to put your information or put your questions in the chat. Erin and Corey and I are here to answer any questions. We will also be sharing our new member form in the chat with everyone. We do hope that you are able to join the Pathways Alliance, as we would be extremely happy to have you. But before, again, please free to raise your hand. I'm sure we can unmute folks if they have any questions, but we'll also just save some time for any Q&A.
No, there's no cost. We should have said that at the jump.
Yes.
This is not a pitch in terms of money. This is a free alliance.
Yes.
You do have to give something of yourself, which is
Your time.
which has a cost. Let's just be clear. But folks can engage in work groups. We know at many of the institutions that we already partner with, um, we um, we have some folks who are in the AI and education work group who might not be the person who's on the regular pathways member calls, and so it is really sort of choose your own adventure. But we want folks to be on those partner calls, which happen every month. They're only a half an hour. And then your ability to join the work groups that Sabrina talked about, maybe data infrastructure, AI, the principal working group. If you're an IHE that has a principal preparation program, it's an incredible working group to be a part of, especially as we inbound this new type of pathway in apprenticeships with principal national guideline standards. We expect that to grow both in terms of resources, but also in the number of programs who might be using apprenticeship pathways for principal preparation or tutors as well. That those types of work groups can both have folks from the institution who just go to that work group because they're specialists, not generalists. And then we ask that you have representation in that all partner call. So go ahead, Sabrina, anything you would add?
I also want to add that we do welcome ideas for new working groups as well. That is one thing we lean very much on our partners to do is to, if you're seeing a possible working group idea, please share that with us. We're happy to discuss it with our founding partners and also segue the way. A lot of our working groups came from our partners, especially like the principal, the tutor, and also the AI working group one. So we look forward to that collaboration in that way.
And actually we give you money if you can believe this. So if you're a member of the Pathways Alliance, we offer travel scholarships every year for members to be able to present their work at conferences, to be able to join us at events. So if this even makes sense, this could actually add to your budget, not take away from it. I know that's like a unheard of thing in this moment. So you give us time, we give you a network, a collaboration, and the opportunity to share your work and your leadership in a wider national space. Other questions or things y'all are curious about, if it's about the Alliance or if it's about challenges that you might have in this space, we're happy to answer those as well. Oh, Frank asked a great question about what other schools are doing great work in this area. So I have to say WGU because Corey's on here, but I'll say a number. I think we see so many institutions of higher education who are really embracing and leaning into this work in really incredible ways. Whether that's from the research perspective and adding to the research corpus, I'll name Texas Tech, but also, I would name folks like Ball State who were really brave in taking on a pre-apprenticeship and a K-12 teacher apprenticeship. And I think providing a national model for what it looks like to extend apprenticeship and to extend opportunities to attend college classes for high school students. And so they actually have an amazing program at Ball State where they work with juniors and seniors in high school and fund that through Pell Grants and pre-apprenticeship dollars. And those young people have the opportunity to attend classes, but also to get um, experience working in after school programs with community providers, with Boys and Girls Club, and a number of others. And then about 50% of young people who participate in that program end up entering Ball State's teacher preparation program. So it's an amazing recruitment tool for them and end up graduating in 3 years because they have completed some of their prerequisites and some of their requirements through that sort of 5 year pre-apprenticeship to apprenticeship program. So there's a number. VCU, I think, is doing some incredible work. It would be hard for me to like list off, I think, all the incredible universities who I think are stepping up and really thinking about how they're leveraging different types of pathways into the profession. Certainly SUNY CUNY in New
Dallas
York.
College.
Yeah, Dallas College, unbelievable. I think they've really pioneered some interesting ways to cover the expenses of their candidates, like childcare, transportation, using blended dollars. And that's really one of the things that I think is this amazing part of the alliance is everyone's willing to share. So, like, we hear things, for example, let's like blend and braid dollars. Well, like, awesome. It's great to blend and braid dollars. How do I do it? How do I take those
Yes.
Department of Labor dollars and use them strategically to cover the expenses of my candidates for transportation, for childcare, for books, maybe even? And so, where should I be using this bucket of dollars to do it? Where should I be using this bucket of dollars to do it? And certainly in the midst of changing financial aid picture, this is something we're really helping so many of the partners in the alliance navigate as there is going to be real changes in professional degrees, for example, and the rules around that at the federal level. How are you going to adapt to those changes? How do you do that so candidates who need more financial support, student loans and student aid, can put those dollars together to make a pathway into the profession affordable? That is certainly something that so many of our members are both taking on within the alliance, and we are talking about and sharing in the alliance around models to do that. So thanks for bringing that up, Sabrina, as just an example of something that's like real tactical, y'all. Like, how do I make the money work? I mean, that's a hard one. I would say the
It is.
other,
I will echo
yeah,
Erin. Erin, if you don't mind me
yeah,
jumping in,
no, jump.
echo everything that you just shared. I mean, I think WGU is a little bit unique because it does have a national perspective, but everything that Erin just shared is that you have federal, you have state, you have district initiatives that are really trying to drive into this space. And so each area's need and what they're trying to do is a little bit different. And that's the power of this alliance, is because we're actually all coming together saying, like, what worked about this? What didn't work about this? Are we actually doing the research to understand what is powerful, what's actually shifting the industry and is working for those that are entering into it? And as Erin mentioned, it's not easy. It's very difficult to braid funding and figure out how you're doing that with all of those different levels of opportunity. And again, you might be working with one district who's doing it one way and a different district who's doing it a different way as you're trying to support your educators, your candidates as they're moving through your experience. And so it is incredibly powerful to come together as a group of deans like this, say, what am I learning? What am I not learning? And as the larger collective of this alliance, philanthropic institutions, nonprofits that are here, businesses, tech companies, saying, are there ways in which we can enable this work to make it easier than it has been through traditional experiences? So Selfishly, I'm going to say I would love to have you all participate in this alliance because the more the merrier. We actually have an opportunity to learn from each other. And I fundamentally believe to change the future of educator preparation and principal preparation. There's so many individuals who are participating in this field who dramatically impact and influence their communities who have not been enabled to move forward because of cost or childcare or other things, and we have an opportunity to change that through the collective work of a group like this.
And we're exclusively funded by philanthropy. So this is a set of philanthropic funders who have said, we recognize there needs to be connective tissue in this space. And that connective tissue is can't just be one entity or one organization or one group of institutions, that the power is in really bringing together and de-siloing this space. And so, I think I know that was a question. How are we funded? That's how we're funded. And, we also have some research partners who might take on research for us at the national level. And so they might not, for example, fund pathways, but they work in concert with us to be able to take on some of those research questions that I just talked about. So we're incredibly grateful for the support of the national philanthropic community in doing this work and in providing that connective tissue. And I think there's a real recognition that we're stronger when we go together. Great. Well, I'll make sure that we share in our follow. So here's what we're going to do to follow up. We will send the new partner form in an email to everyone who registered for the webinar. We'll be sending this webinar. So you can maybe you're not the person who makes the decision. Maybe you were delegated this webinar. But if that's the case, go ahead and share this recording in your community. We'll also share that iPads webinar that we are going to be doing on Thursday, February 12th, exclusively for higher education institutions with the folks from AIR and with the former head of data who did the college scorecard for the U.S. Department of Education, so that Brett Madu, so that folks can kind of hear very tactically and practically how to meet the new iPads Act requirements that are coming down from the U.S. Department of Education and what that means to really use this year to meet those requirements. And so we'll continue to be able, oh, great, somebody shared that in the chat. Please feel free to register for that or to share it with your campus data administrators, admission and enrollment leaders, or compliance and reporting officers. Again, at Pathways and at Innovate EDU, we tend to do things that respond to asks directly from the field. And so we're able to pull in national experts, national policy, and give access to folks who are really at a national level to influence both the direction of where something might be going, but also to get information how to meet those changing policy conditions that are really coming at us. From a federal level and from a state level, and how to influence that in order to, again, have quality research-backed educator preparation at the core.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Erin. Thank you, Corey. And thank you all for spending time with us today. And again, as Erin mentioned, if today's conversation resonated with you, we'd love to continue the dialogue. Joining the Alliance means being a part of a national community and also having the visibility into emerging opportunities that help shape standards and also guidance that affects the field. So again, we thank you for the work that you all do to prepare the next generation of educators. And thank you for considering on how to further collaboration across the ecosystem. We truly appreciate your time and your partnership. We will share we'll share all the follow-up resources with you all via email, as Erin mentioned. And we look forward to connecting. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Sabrina. Thanks, Erin.
Have a good one.
Have a wonderful